I had an affirmation that I used for years, still use it. I'm so happy and grateful now that money comes to me in increasing quantities through multiple sources on a continuous basis. I am so happy and grateful now that money comes to me in increasing quantities through multiple sources on a continuous basis. And I just keep repeating that like a mantra. And you write out, I'm so happy and grateful now that I have in my possession $1 million. And that's where you started out intellectually, then you get emotionally involved. And if you keep doing that, ultimately you're going to attract the money. You could spend, 9 minutes. If you just write this down right now. I am so happy and grateful. I am so happy and grateful now that I have multiple sources of income. I am so happy and grateful now that I have multiple sources of income. If you write that out every day for the next 30, 60 days, you're going to become very, very aware of having multiple sources of income. Wealthy people all have multiple sources. They don't have one or two. They have a whole bunch of them. I don't know how many sources of income I've got. I'm not even interested in figuring it out because somebody else looks after that. I don't look after it. But I do know that you can do that. That's what Keith did it down in New Orleans. God, his life changed so dramatically. And I'll show you different things you can do because anyone can. You want to set up multiple sources of income.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more, and you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Bob Proctor, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, decide to improve.
Let the sand in the glass here represent your life. The sand in the top of the glass represents the future. The sand in the bottom of the glass represents the past. Now, here's the odd thing about this. You don't know how much sand you have left in the top of the glass. You may think you have a lot, and you might only have a little. You may think you only have a little, and you might have a lot. We don't know. This is gone. You can do nothing about it. The only thing you can do is what's right here, right now, right in the center. If a person's listening to me right now, they can make a decision to change right now. Just make the decision. You don't have to know how. You don't have to know where the money's going to come from. You don't have to know where the resources are come from. Just make a decision and then decide what you want.
Rule number 3, discover your purpose.
How do you find your life's purpose or passion?
Your life's purpose. You don't find it. You do find it. You discover it. Our purpose, this is interesting. Your life's purpose is your reason for living. I like the way my good friend says it. How do you put it? The 2 most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you decide or discover why you were born. Les Brown says that all the time. And I like him when he says that. Now, the day you're born, the 2 most important days, the day you're born, the day you discover why you're born. Your purpose is why you get out of bed in the morning. Your purpose is why you're living. I obviously have found my purpose. I love what I do. I absolutely love it. I'm passionate about it. I help people understand who they are, how to change their life, how to go from being broke to becoming wealthy, being unhappy to be happy, how to be in a bad vibration to be in a good vibration. That is my purpose. I've studied it. I love it. I live it. Most people have never discovered why they're here. How do you discover it? You sit down and totally relax. Get yourself a pad in a little pen and put it somewhere beside a chair, a favorite chair. Discipline yourself maybe at the same time every day, early in the morning, to go and sit there. And the only thing you put in this pad is what comes to your mind. And ask yourself, it's a little game you play. If I could do what I loved every day, that's all I do is what I love every day. I come in here into this studio that I'm in. This studio is in my backyard. I can broadcast all over the world from here. Now, my company built it for me. This is what I do. And ask yourself, if I could do what I love all day, what would it be? That's where your purpose, that's where you're going to find your purpose. That's where you're going to find it. I'll give you a good example. I watched a very pretty woman being interviewed on television. And she had been a dancer in a chorus line. And she said, you know, I was a pretty good dancer, but I wasn't the best. I knew I was always going to be in the chorus. I would never be the star because I wasn't that good. And she said, I liked it, but I didn't really love it. And she said, I sat down one day and I thought, what do I really love to do? She says, I love baking pastry. It's quite a switch from dancing. She got out of the dancing business. She moved to France and went to work with some of the best pastry chefs in the world. Now, when I saw her being interviewed, she was one of the top pastry chefs in the world. She was doing what she loved. That's what you got to do. You got to find out what do you love. That's what you're going to be passionate about, and that's what you should be doing. And it doesn't matter whether you're earning any money on it or not. You see, you don't earn money from working. That's a myth, and it's not a very good one. It's a belief of most people, and it's a silly one. You earn money by providing service. You can earn more money when you're sleeping than you could spend when you're awake if you learn how to provide the service.
Rule number 4, always have a goal.
If you could go back and with all the wisdom that you've gained over the years, if you could go back and tell 10-year-old Bob some advice, give him some advice based on everything that you've learned, what advice would you give him?
Set a goal. Always have a goal. I have in my pocket a goal card. I've been carrying a goal card in my pocket for years, since 1961. When you decide on a goal, you paint the picture in words. When you do that, you impregnate the picture into a group of cells in your brain. Every time I touch that goal card, it triggers the picture in my mind. And as long as that picture is there, I keep moving in direction of it. And that is really the secret, I think, to living a good life. You got to have a reason for it. When you wake up in the morning, you have to have a good reason for waking up and going to work.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, do what feels good.
Feeling is a word we invented to describe our conscious awareness of the vibration we're in. When you are feeling bad, you're in a negative vibration. When you're feeling good, you're in a positive vibration. That's just a basic thing that we could go by. So how do you feel good? Well, there's all kinds of ways to feel good. Think of something really pleasant. You'll start feeling good. Do something kind for somebody. You'll start to feel better. Help somebody out somewhere. You'll start to feel good. Share a good idea. You'll start to feel good. When you're feeling good, you're in a good vibration, you're going to attract good stuff to you. Most people don't understand that feeling is conscious awareness of vibration, and the vibration you're in is dictating what you're going to attract.
Ooh.
It's a basic thing.
True.
It's so basic, but it's not understood.
Rule number 6, develop your focus.
Focus is an act of the mind. You have a will. a will. You have perception, reason, imagination, memory, intuition, and the will. The will gives you the ability to focus on one thing. How do you do that? Most people, if they focused on one thing for more than 3 seconds, they'd probably set a family record. Most people's minds all over the place. The most successful people are very focused. If you take and put a little dot with a pen or a marker on the wall opposite your favorite chair. Don't tell anybody you're doing. If they see it, they'll think it's a fly or something, won't pay any attention. But put a little black dot or ink dot on the wall opposite your favorite chair. When you're sitting in the chair, practice, totally relax and stare at that black dot. Just stare at that black dot. Now you're going to find your mind will wander. You only stare at it for a millisecond and your mind will be gone somewhere. You'll hear something, a sound, a siren, and your mind's gone. Don't feel bad about it. Bring it right back to the dot. Bring it back to the dot. Bring it back. And every time you sit in that chair, now if you will turn that into a habit, I guarantee you'll become strong focus. I was out on the golf tour with one of the pros, and we were sitting around a room the night between the 2 rounds, and he asked me about that, and that's what I taught him. I said, Sam, relax. Now I went to the opposite wall and I put a little dot in the wall. Now I said, focus on that. There's another way of doing it. Light a candle in a candle holder and put the candle somewhere near your favorite chair and just stare at the flame. Keep concentrating on the flame until you become one with the flame. Find your mind wander, bring it back to the flame. Now that's how you focus. And what you're doing is you're strengthening your will. When you do this, you're strengthening your will. Once you get it strong, you can keep making it stronger. It's like anything. It's like your body. You exercise it, it'll get strong. And if you don't, it'll get very lethargic. Develop your will. That's how you develop the focus. And can you provide an affirmation? Well, anybody can make an affirmation. It's just a positive statement from yourself to yourself. I always I'm happy and grateful. I am so happy and grateful now that I have the ability to focus, and I don't take my mind off my focus. So you see, when you see this and you know this and you can focus, that's when you're away to the races.
Rule number 7, don't let logic stop you.
Logic is like an invisible ceiling that most people never go through. They set goals, somebody will say, well, that's just not realistic. I wonder what the Wright brothers caused their neighbors to think. You know, it was just a little over 100 years ago, 115, 18 years ago, that they got us off the ground. Now think. Do you think they let logic stop them? No one had ever flown. They were bicycle mechanics. They weren't engineers. They weren't flight engineers, but they got us off the ground. And look at today. I see that thing, Boeing, I think it is, have a great big Dreamliner. I saw a thing on television where it taxis a little bit and then turns this way. Woo! Goes straight up. Hundreds of people on it. The Wright brothers would be turning over their grave if they saw that deal happen. Now think. Logic. Absolutely refuse to let logic stop you. I had the good fortune of working with Sir Edmund Hillary. He was the first man to stand on the top of Mount Everest. I worked on 2 or 3 occasions. The only thing different about him and anybody else I know was his size. Very big man. Shake hands with him because his hand would wrap right around mine. He was a big man. No one had ever been to the top of Mount Everest. Many people died trying, but he stood right on the top. And there's been over 1,000 people do it since then. It seems we're waiting for somebody else to do things. Why don't you do it? Why don't you do it?
Rule number 8, take control.
Although you cannot change conditions or circumstance, you don't have to let them control you. We can't control what's going on outside, but we can control what's going on inside. And unfortunately, I don't think many of us have been raised to really understand that.
Yeah.
And it's a lack of understanding that's causing all our problems.
But how can you say that to someone who's like, well, I don't feel like I have control on the inside when it seems like everything has power over me? What's something they can start to shift?
You see, the truth is for that person, that would be true, that they're being controlled by outside. We look at it this way. We are the only creature on the planet that's totally disoriented in our environment. All the little squirrels, the birds, all the animals, are completely at home in their environment. They blend in. You and I are totally disoriented in our environment. We've been given the mental faculties to create our own environment. However, we go right through school and we've never learned that. We have higher faculties, and the average person has no knowledge of how to operate with them, how to develop them. We have perception, the will, reason, imagination, memory, and intuition. Now, those mental faculties, they're not just words, they're actually mental faculties that we can use to take control over our world and to create the environment that we want. But unfortunately, we grow up, we don't know that. We've been raised to live through by what we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, our physical senses. And we've been raised to be controlled by what's going on outside. As little kids, will you listen to what I'm telling you? Will you look at this? And so it's all outside. We get our report card, and that tells us what kind of student we are. But it really tells us where our mind was at for a few minutes 3 weeks ago. Got nothing to do with who we are. So I think we're raised in ignorance, actually. There's a very small percentage of the population that have a reasonably clear understanding of who they are and what they're capable of doing. But the ones that do are in the minority.
Rule number 9, use the power of imagination.
Now, here you have your senses: see, hear, smell, taste, touch. You also have an imagination. Your imagination is a magnificent, Hill said it's the most marvelous, miraculous, inconceivably powerful force the world's ever known. There's a power flowing into your consciousness. It never stops. It flows to and through you. You can actually photograph this energy leaving your body. You can learn to read it too. I could read your energy like a book. Now, as this energy comes in, your imagination gives you the ability to build the picture. And you can build any picture you want. And what you want to do is, with your imagination, build an image of something absolutely incredible. And then you turn it over to your subconscious mind. This is the part the early Greeks called the heart. That's why Solomon says, as a person thinketh in their heart, so are they. Because whatever's impressed has to be expressed. So it's the image that you impress that controls the vibratory rate of the physical body. I was working with Matt, who's in our creative department, and today, and we've been working on a special video that we're going to be putting out. You'll hear about it, and it's on attraction, the law of attraction. Do you see, the law of attraction is a secondary law. It's not a primary law. If you don't understand the law of vibration, you're never going to understand the law of attraction. And everybody's impacted by that. Well, the visualizing is use the imagination. You've got to sit down and become the actor. And you start to see yourself with the good that you desire. And then, as you start to impress it, this is your emotional mind. This is your intellectual mind. This is your emotional mind. And as you pass this over to the emotional mind, it sets up a vibration in the body, and that's called feeling. So you got to feel yourself already with the good that you desire. Now, if you have to write a little note to yourself and carry it around and hold it in your hand, and you just take a little note and hold it in your hand. Every now and then, stop for a few minutes, go sit somewhere by yourself and totally relax. Tell your body to relax. It's your body. You're not a body, you live in a body. So say, just relax, just relax. In fact, try this right now. Let all the muscles in your stomach relax. Let them all relax. Let it all hang out. Come on, just let it hang out. Now, let your jaw relax. Just let it relax. You didn't even notice your jaw wasn't relaxed. Just let it relax. Now get yourself into a totally relaxed state. And then start holding the picture and getting emotionally involved with the good that you desire. I mentioned something yesterday. I'm going to mention it again because I think it's very important. Get this book. This is Stella Adler's book, The Art of Acting. It is an incredible book. Really good. She was Marlon Brando's teacher. Art of Acting. You want to act like the person you want to become. Way back 1900, William James said that. It's the actor's technique.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is never stop studying.
One of the best bits of advice that you were ever given.
Well, to study. Never stop studying. I was in here in the studio at 4:45 this morning, and these are things I was working on this morning. I have pieces of literature that I study every morning. Are you familiar with this book, Power of Awareness?
No,
By Neville.
I'm going to make myself aware of it.
Power of Awareness by
Neville.
Neville. And it has a red band across the bottom. Make sure the maroon band. Because there are different books. This is Power of Awareness by Neville. But make sure it's got this red band across the bottom.
Done.
Now, he said, determined imagination, thinking from the end, is the beginning of all miracles. That is so good. So you imagine yourself, you've already done it. You're already there. And he said, the future must become the present in the imagination of the person who would wisely and consciously create circumstance. Well, I've been studying this one page for days. And I was on the phone with Sandy Gallagher from about 8:30 till 9 this morning. We were studying this one page together. And we were talking about where we would apply it. The secret, I think, to growing is study. And if you don't study, you're going to stay where you are. You have to keep studying. I learned how to study when I worked with Earl Nightingale. And I've got a book holder here on my desk that has a book open. Now, I've been reading those same 2 pages for maybe 3 months. And it's the repetition of the information that alters the programming in our subconscious mind. Have you ever spent any time wondering, how does everything happen? How does everything happen? Why does the night follow the day? Why doesn't the day follow the day? In fact, in some places it does. But I spend a lot of time thinking about this. In fact, at times it almost drives me crazy. But like right outside of my studio here is a Japanese maple tree. And there's times of the year it's absolutely beautiful. In the spring of the year, it has buds on it, and then the buds, boom, and leaves pop out. And the leaves generally in the spring are a very deep greeny brown. They're not a pretty looking leaf. But then they start to change, and over time, you don't notice it happening. Just one day you look and it's a different color. And by fall, the leaves are crimson red. They're the most beautiful. It is the most beautiful tree. And it's right outside in my studio. I'm sitting here at my desk and the camera's around me, but out there is that tree. And you know, every fall the leaves turn red. Every spring they're greeny brown. They're not greeny brown in the fall and red in the spring. They're always red in the fall and greeny brown in the spring. Think about it. Did you ever wonder why the tide goes way out and the tide comes way back in? I spent some time in the Navy in Canada, and I was down on the East Coast for a while, and I was near the Bay of Fundy. Do you know the Bay of Fundy has one of the highest and lowest tides in the world? It's absolutely amazing. It goes way out and then comes way back in. Same up around Prince George on the West Coast. You go onto a ship and you might be walking up a plank just right straight up, and you go off the ship, sometimes you're going right down. That ship goes way up in the air and it comes way down. Very high, very low tide. Now, some places the tide's not very big. They do have a tide, but not too high, not too low. Why is it so different in one place than another? You know, why does the leaves change color? Why do they change color? You know, why does the grass keep growing? Wouldn't it be so much nicer if the grass just stayed at a certain length? You wouldn't have to cut it, but it would always look pretty, you know? Do you ever think about this? Do you know that everything in this universe happens in an exact way? An exact way. Not by chance, but in an exact way. When John Kennedy, the President of the United States, asked Dr. Wernher von Braun, who was the mastermind behind the space program, when he asked him, what would it take to build a rocket that would carry a person to the moon and bring him back safely to Earth? Von Braun answered him in 5 words: the will to do it. That's it, the will to do it. He knew you didn't have to know how to do it. He knew you had to learn how to do it, but you didn't have to know to make up your mind you were going to do it. Now, why did he say that? Because he understands the laws. Von Braun one time said after years of studying the spectacular mysteries of the cosmos, he was led into a firm belief in the existence of God. And he said, the natural laws of this universe are so precise that we don't even have any difficulty building spaceship. We can send people to the moon and we can time the landing with the precision of a fraction of a second. Now, he said these laws must have been set by someone. I see the laws as God's modus operandi. But I'm going to tell you something. Everything happens by law. When you and I get in harmony with the law, now we do that, odds are pretty good we should understand them. But when we get in harmony with the law, then I'm going to tell you it's just smooth sailing. Success happens. Probably be a good idea to understand the laws, wouldn't it? Think about it. Your life is governed by laws that are not man-made, so they're not going to be man-changed. And if you study them and work in harmony with them, you'll shock yourself with the good you can do. Now, I've been doing that for the last 58 years. I'm starting to get a reasonable grip on them, but I don't understand them as well as I want to or would like to. But I'm going to study a little more today. You know, I get my trusty book out here. I'll have to talk to you about this book. That'll be another talk. Study the laws. Find out what they write, what they're like. What are the laws? And then study them. You'll win. You see, the beautiful truth is you've already got everything you need inside. You don't have to get it. You don't have to follow the pattern that our formal educational institutions teach us. You don't have to read all the books. That's not necessary. I think Madame Montessori put it very well. She said we tend to send a child to school as if they're an empty cup and we expect them to fill the cup. She said the truth is the cup's already full. School is to help draw out what's already there. You see, you and I are God's highest form of creation. There's nothing on the planet that will even come close to us. Strange thing, you know, you and I are the only creature on the planet that is totally disoriented in our environment. All those other little creatures, they're completely at home in their environment. They blend in. We don't. We're totally disoriented. And that is because we have the ability, you and I do, of creating our own environment. Now think of what that means. That means that you and I can literally create the life we want. Now, as I said, when I first heard that, I did not believe it. But I knew the man that was giving me the advice believed it. And that man was Raymond Douglas Stanford, one of my very first mentors. Ever notice that some people seem to want to hang on to stuff that is bothering them? They're forever talking about it. They don't want to let it go. They've had a failure at something and it's dwelling. They can't get over it. They just can't get over it. Or somebody said something nasty to them. They don't want to let it go. Do you know what we should do? We should ask ourselves, everything that happens, is this serving me? Is this serving me? And if it's not serving you, get rid of it. You don't want anything in your life that's not serving you, that's not causing you to grow, that's not adding to the quality of your life. I don't care what it is. You will find some people, they just hold on to bad stuff. They hold on to problems. They don't want to seem to let it go. And that adds more problems. Whatever you focus on grows. The only thing that can grow is the thing you give energy to. Why would you hold on to anything that's not serving you? Now, I want you to think about this. I'm not going to talk about a lot about this today because I don't think I have to. I just want to let you know that if you're holding on to something that does not serve you, you are making a terrible error. It's going to cause all kinds of problems. You may blame other people or other things. You may blame the situation. It's you are the cause of the problem. The man that told me to pick up this book and read it, Ray Stanford, he had a saying. He used to say to me, Bob, you're the only problem you'll ever have, and you're the only solution. I think it might have taken me 5 years to understand that. But I do understand it. And you know something? I am the only problem I'll ever have, and I am the only solution. Don't hold on to anything that is not serving you. Reject it. Do you know the beautiful part about having an inductive reasoning factor? That's the part that chooses thoughts. You can accept or reject. The beautiful part of your mind, you can accept or reject anything that comes into your world. Accept or reject it. It's a choice. Don't hold on to anything that is not serving you. Sandy Gallagher is my business partner.
Love her.
She is really good. She was going through a very tough time personally a number of years ago. We were in Phoenix. We were doing a seminar. I had to leave, catch a plane somewhere. And she said, before you leave, could we get together maybe for a cup of coffee? Could you, I want to talk to you. And I said, sure. So we went across the road to a coffee shop. And we were sitting there. And she said, could you give me 2 or 3 ideas that I could do every day that would help me through this? I said, sure. I didn't know what I was going to tell her, but I knew I would tell her something. So I said, every day, I want you to take a pen and write down, every morning, write down 10 things you're grateful for. But you've really got to be grateful. You've got to feel it. You're really grateful. Then I want you to send love to 3 people that are bothering you. If they're bothering you, you don't like them. They've got nothing to do with it. You're thinking bad thoughts about them. You're putting yourself in a bad vibration. Send love to 3 people that bother you. And then take 5 minutes and be quiet. Just be perfectly quiet and ask for guidance for the day. Everybody in our company does that every day. She started to do it like that, everything changed. In fact, my assistant, Gina, who's been with me over 30 years, she was working in Phoenix, and I phoned Gina, and I told her what I wanted. Within an hour, she had a pad printed at Kinko's and had it, the 10 things, one down to 10, you know. Send love to 3 people who bother you, be quiet for 5 minutes. Sandy was going to Hawaii with her sister and her mother the next day. She got pads made for both of them, and every morning they started to do that. It changed every one of their lives. We give that out now in a lot of our seminars, and we train the audience to do it. Start every morning, write 10 things that you're grateful for. Send love to 3 people that bother you. Be quiet for 5 minutes and ask for guidance for the day. It's a winning formula. Patience is a virtue. I suppose it probably is. But I think patience, real patience, is an expression of deep understanding. You see, everything happens when it's supposed to happen. Everything in this universe happens by law. We set targets and we need things to happen. We need something to come or someone to do something. And frequently we get frustrated because it isn't happening when we think it should happen. Our problem is we're not thinking. We believe we're in charge. We are not in charge. We are in charge of building the idea and holding the idea. Everything else happens automatic. It happens by law. All ideas have a gestation or an incubation period. I'm told when we plant a carrot in the area of the world that I live, it takes approximately 70 days for that carrot to grow and manifest in form. When the seed for the baby's planted, it takes approximately 280 days. And we're usually patient. We will wait the 280 days. Why? Because we know it's going to take approximately 280 days. Well, just because we don't know how long it's going to take doesn't mean that it isn't operating by the same laws. Everything operates by law. So if we gain an understanding that all the ideas in our mind will ultimately move into form, that's what Andrew Carnegie taught Napoleon Hill. Carnegie was Hill's mentor. He said, any idea that's held in the mind, that's emphasized, that's either feared or revered, will begin at once to clothe itself in the most convenient and appropriate form available. You might want to listen to that 2 or 3 times. Burn it into your mind. Gain an understanding of it. And you will know that whatever you're working on takes a period of time. No one knows what the gestation period is for an idea. We only know we can shorten it through concentration, through focus. And when you understand that, you will become more patient. And when you're more patient, you're living in a much more beautiful vibration. You'll be a more pleasant person to be around. You will enjoy yourself more. Patience. It's the result of understanding. If you really analyze your beliefs, you'll change them. Right. I had a friend one time, I was trying to figure out where do beliefs come from. How do you, because all religion and all science will tell you, you got to believe it. William James from Harvard, 1900, he said, believe and your belief will create the fact. So belief is an interesting word. You got to believe it. And I was having lunch with a mentor one time, and he said, our belief system is based upon our evaluation of something. Frequently, if we reevaluate a situation, our belief about that situation will change. It was like bells were going off my head because I was trying to understand belief. How do you change your belief? Well, he told me, it's through reevaluation. And so I started to evaluate myself and reevaluate what I was doing. It took me 9.5 years, but I figured out why I changed. And it was the repetition of information.
Thank you.
You're in sports, you know, it's repetition.
Yep.
Repetition. Well, but practice doesn't make you perfect. Perfect practice makes you perfect. There's a big difference.
Great point.
And so I found that the part of our mind that controls our behavior is not the part of our mind that gathers information. School deals with the part of your mind that gathers information. And so we gather all kinds of information, and if we can remember it, they give us a test, we pass the test, we get the degree, and we're educated. That's not education at all. That is gathering information. Education, as Hill pointed out, comes from the Latin educo, meaning to reduce, to develop, or to draw from within. We have genius in us. We have absolute perfection in us. And what we have to do is learn how to tap into that, to let it out. But we have a part of our mind that controls our behavior, and that's where a paradigm is. And the paradigm literally controls our behavior. I don't care what you're doing. If you're not altering the paradigm, you're not going to improve your results. There's so much about ourselves we never learn. The part of our mind that controls us is our intellect, or our subconscious, where the paradigm is, but we're trained to live through our senses. We're trained to go by what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch. And we've got to understand that we've got this genius within us, and if we will consciously gain an awareness, an understanding of how to alter the paradigm that's controlling our behavior, when we learn that, we can start to improve life, just like that. And there's no end to what we're capable of doing. We're conditioned genetically. All mom's DNA and all dad's DNA becomes our DNA. There's 2 particles of energy come together. That's the moment of conception. 280 days later, we make our debut on the planet. Then we're programmed by our environment, because our subconscious mind, which is totally deductive, it has no ability to reject. The subconscious mind is immoral. It's like the earth. It doesn't care what you plant, but it'll return what you plant. Right. Earl Nightingale used a beautiful example in The Strangest Secret. He said, you can plant nightshade, a deadly poison, not a 16th of an inch away. You can plant corn, a sweet food. One will grow with just as great an abundance as the other. And that's the way your subjective mind works. You put the wrong idea in, it will grow. Put the right idea in, it will grow. We have the ability to change what's in there. We did not program it. It was programmed through genetic history, where the confluence of a genetic pool that goes back for generations. That's at birth, and then environmentally. And we have the ability to alter all that. And when I was 26, I had a man that sat down with me, And he said, why don't you change the way you're living? It never entered my mind that I could. And looking back and thinking about it, I think there's all kinds of people wandering the planet. There's all kinds of athletes that are not getting the results they want, and they don't know they can change them.
Right. Only one person can change.
There's only one person in the whole universe that can change Bob, and that's Bob.
Yeah.
There's only one person who can change Dave, and that's Dave. Now, we get inspired by other people, we get help from other people, but we've got to do it ourselves. And he gave me Think and Grow Rich, and he said, if you do exactly what I tell you, you can have anything you want. Well, I didn't believe that, but he was so adamant about it, I believed he believed it. And so I started to listen to him. And I set a goal. I wanted some money. I wanted $25,000. Now, this was in 1961, so it was more money then than it is today. But I didn't even know anyone with $25,000. He said, listen, write it on a card, keep reading the book, keep doing what I tell you. So I started to hear people talking about earning money. And there was one guy said, there's good money cleaning floors. You should clean floors. Well, I wasn't proud. I'd clean floors. And he said, but you should do it for yourself, not for somebody else. So he told me where I could buy a used floor machine, some buckets and mops, but I had to borrow $1,000. Well, I was at the point where nobody wanted to touch me with money. And I often say, I wouldn't have lent it to me.
Right.
Because I wouldn't pay it back. Not that I didn't want to, I just couldn't. But I found a guy and he lent me the $1,000.
When you borrow, excuse me, because
Yeah.
I have a question, because I know you. When you borrowed that $1,000, because you owed people money already, you had explained that to people, you were just finding yourself. But did you have a different feeling about when you borrowed this $1,000 that quite possibly you were actually going to be able to pay this back this time?
Do you know something? If I hadn't had that feeling, I wouldn't have got the money. I got it from a guy, I knew his name, Al Kuiper. He was running, and I didn't know him, he had a trust company. It was like a bank on Danforth Avenue in Toronto. And I went in, I read a book where it says, go to one bank and then we'll give you, go to another one. Well, I ended up sitting in his office, and he said, what do you want this money for, son? And I told him I was going to build a cleaning company. It was going to be big. I had a dream. And I had to explain it all to him. He said, I think you'll do it. I'm going to lend you the money.
Faith.
But I knew when I was doing this, I had a picture, I had a dream, you see?
Yep.
And within a year, I was earning $175,000 a year. I had my billing up to $15,000 a month working for myself. In less than 5 years, we were working in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cleveland, Atlanta, and London, England. I had my own company opening offices all over the place.
Why most people don't get what they want out of life? Is it...
Well, they don't know what they want.
That's right.
You see, I got this, and then I got Earl Nightingale's condensed narration of this on a long playing record. And I'd listen to that record over and over and over again. One day, I was in the business, in the cleaning business. I had salespeople, and I had them listen to this record. Every morning we listened to this record. And one day I said, I'd love to meet him. And I didn't know who Earl Nightingale was. He was a voice on a record. That was it. I didn't even know where he lived. And a young guy that worked with me, he said, no, you wouldn't. He said, if you wanted to meet him, you'd go and meet him. I thought, damn, he's right. So I phoned, and I got an appointment with him. Now, at the time, he was the most listened to man in the history of the broadcasting industry. He was a radio broadcaster. And not an easy guy to get to, but I got to meet with him for an hour. I flew to Chicago. I spent an hour with him. And when I was leaving, I said, Earl, what's the big deal? What's it all about? He said, there's no big deal. He said, it's very simple. He says, simply decide what you love to do and then dedicate your life to it. He said, the problem with most people, they don't know what they love to do. They never take the time to sit and ask themselves. What they're doing is I think I can get earn good money here. I could do it. It's where can they earn some money? It's not what they love to do. Well, I was sitting there. Now, I had offices all over the place. I had a lot of people. I was earning a lot of money. And I got excited because I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to do what he was doing. And I made up my mind sitting in his office. That'd be somewhere around 1965. That I was going to go back and I was going to work with him. And in 1968, I moved to Chicago. I left my own company. I moved to Chicago and I started to work with him. The law of rhythm is a law. We have a biorhythm. We go up and down. We live simultaneously on three planes. We're triune beings. We're spiritual, intellectual, and physical. Well, all three is on a rhythm cycle. And we have critical highs and critical lows. That's when all three parts of us are on a critical high, all three parts of us on a very low. Do you know there's airlines that will not let their pilots fly when they're on a critical low? They won't let them fly. They just ground them. You can have this charted. I have people come up and ask me questions sometimes. I know what they want to do. They want to chart my rhythm cycle. And I give them the dates and the things they want. But when they bring it to me, I don't pay any attention to it. I don't want to know that I'm on a low swing. I want to know that I am in control of me, and I don't care whether I'm on a low swing or a high swing. I don't even make it good because I'm going to look for the good in it. So we understand that. There's that time of the month, you know. That's not just for the girls, that's for the boys too, because that is a rhythm cycle in life, and it affects all three parts. There's going to be parts when you're on a very high intellectually. You have a column of figures, boom, like that, you add them up. Another time you add up that column, you have to add it up 6 times, you get a different answer every time. You're on a low swing intellectually. There's sometimes when you're on a low swing emotionally. You walk down the street and nothing's going right. There's other days you walk down and you're skipping with the kids, you're singing with the birds, you're on a high. That's a rhythm process of life.
How do we reshape our self-image to serve us as opposed to bring us down?
Well, it's interesting. Maxwell Maltz actually discovered self-image as we know it today. He was a cosmetic surgeon, and he found if he operated on a person, maybe they had a distasteful scar in their face, and he removed the scar, he said, sometimes there was a phenomenal change in the person's personality. But he said other times they'd remove the scar, it was very successful, no change in their personality. That led him to postulate that we not only have this physical image that reflects back from the mirror, we have an inner image of ourselves. It's how we see ourselves.
Right.
Now that inner image is an idea, and that idea is generally planted in our little life when we're infants. And it's planted by virtue of the environment that we're surrounded by, how we're raised. If a child's raised with praise, they're going to grow up very confident individuals. If a child's raised with criticism, they're going to grow up very insecure. So you see this image that we have, it's a picture of how we see ourselves, but most of us, that image was planted by people that didn't know what the hell was going on. They didn't know the war was over, and they were developing a little mind. It was a mind. They were shaping it like fresh clay. They didn't understand that. It was a kid they're looking after, and we feed him, we keep him warm. What the hell? You know, that's our responsibility. No, it was a mind, and they were developing that mind. And if they didn't understand, what were they going to put in? Well, all they could give to the child is the insecurities that they had themselves. So that was the picture that the kid grows up of themselves. Now, I grew up very insecure. I was born during the Depression. When I first went to school, the Second World War had just broken out, so everybody's rationed for everything. It was hard times. All the men were away fighting in Europe or South Pacific. There was no men doing anything. The women that were there were driving the trucks. They were cops. They did everything. So There wasn't a hell of a lot of time used for developing a little mind. So I just grew up and picked up what I could. I grew up very insecure. It wasn't until I met a man that gave me this book and gave me some damn good instruction that I started to pay attention to who I was. And I have never stopped being fascinated with studying me.
Yeah.
I am the most fascinating subject that I've ever come across. And I have found out that you and I are exactly the same. We only appear to be different. Our physical body looks different. We choose different vocations. Some earns more or less than the other. But our potential is exactly the same. We both live in a physical body. We both have these higher mental faculties. We're both spiritual beings. We both draw on an infinite source of supply. We're the same. So the trick, I think, for the person that has insecurities, that hasn't got the strongest image they want, they should find a damn good mentor. That's what changed my life. I think we should be thinking about the greatness, like it's the school of greatness. I think we ought to be thinking about the greatness that we've got locked up within us and bring it to the surface. Everyone has deep reservoirs of talent and ability within them, and they can bring it to the surface to accomplish anything they want. Now, to sit in fear and wonder what's going to happen, that is a dumb waste of your talent and your time.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's what most of the media is promoting right now. To believe in fear is to believe in something you can't see. To believe in faith is to believe in something you can't see. Well, if you have a choice, I think I'd choose faith over fear.
Absolutely.
I think I believe where I can really see something happen. I believe we're going to have a phenomenal year in our company.
Wow.
In fact, I have business partner, Sandy Gallagher, and a very bright lady, was a securities attorney prior to joining us. She ran a program this morning for our entire company. We have about 70 people in the company. She was teaching masterminding to them all. And saying how this is important, that every one of us get involved in this, that we learn the basics of masterminding, that Napoleon Hill brought to the world, let's say, way back in the 30s. Now, I think that's what we should be teaching people. Sandy was on the right track there. So I think we ought to be thinking about what we're going to build. How big are we going to do it? Where are we going to do it? When are we going to start? Our goals have not changed. They're very big. They're very ambitious. And we're not letting this virus slow us down one bit.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we're trying to figure out how can we use this to speed it up.
There you
It's
go.
a chair and you can't get rid of it. Use it to your advantage.
Yeah.
There is a way we can use it to our advantage. People are more dependent upon the phone. I've got a computer here. They're dependent on their phone, their computer, more than they've ever been. We can reach them anywhere in the world through those mediums. Carnegie said to Hill, he said, now, Napoleon, I'm going to introduce you to some of the world's most successful people. He said, I'm going to give you letters of introduction. You'll receive no subsidy from me. I want you to go out and write the laws of achievement. He says, it's a shame that people like myself are going to their grave with all this knowledge locked up in their bones. He said, I want it organized. And I want you to organize it. I will give you letters of introduction, and then you're on your own. Now, he said, you're going to run into many tough times, Napoleon. No question about that. So he said, I'm going to give you something that'll help you through those tough times. I want you to write this out. I want you to write every word. No one's going to underline every word. Now, he said, this is a message that you're going to give from yourself to yourself, Napoleon. So it's going to be you talking to you. I want you to write down Andrew Carnegie. I'm not only going to equal your achievements in life, I'm going to meet you at the post and pass you at the grandstand. Well, as the story goes, he threw his pencil on the floor. He says, now you know darn well I'm not going to be able to do that. He says, I know you're not Napoleon, unless and until you believe it. But I want you to repeat that every morning, and I want you to repeat it every night. I want you to look in the mirror, and I want you to repeat that. Looking in your eyes, say, Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to equal your achievements in life, I'm going to meet you at the post, and I'm going to pass you at the grandstand. Now, that wasn't an easy thing for Hill to do. He was living with his brother. He had promised his brother that he was going to pay for him to go through college. Now he was going to have to go home and tell his brother he couldn't do that. He had a project that he was working on. It was going to take all his time. And it was going to take every cent that he could get for himself. Then he was afraid to tell his brother what he was going to do because he thought his brother would think he had lost his mind. He's going to work on a 20-year project. Nobody's giving him any money. Nobody's going to pay him. The first day he went and he locked himself in the bathroom. And he looked in the mirror and he whispered it. Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to equal your achievements in life, I'm going to meet you at the post and I'm going to pass you at the grandstand. Now he said he felt when he was saying like he was a darn fool. He said, this isn't going to happen. But he said, I made a commitment that I would do this, so I better do it. So every morning and every night he would do this. Now he had committed that he would do it for 30 days. Around the middle of the month, he started to think maybe it could happen. By the end of the month, he knew it would happen. Now, I've done a fair amount of study on this over the last 50 years, and anything I've been able to discover is that Carnegie made somewhere in the vicinity of 50 millionaires. Some people say 20. I've read 23. I've read 50. Napoleon Hill has made millions of millionaires. So you see, he did equal his achievements. He went past his achievements, and he did pass them at the grandstand. Here's a poor boy, a young cub reporter for a magazine. How did he do that? Why did he do that? I think he did it strictly on the belief that Carnegie wasn't going to ask him to do anything that was unjust. But why is it that all successful people make decisions very fast and change them slow? And he found out that was true in his research with all these giants. Well, you know, I have never stopped studying it. I probably never will stop studying it. And I'm going to show you something about decision that has the potential to change your life forever. You see, I wanted to know, why do successful people make decisions when they have absolutely no idea how they're going to make it happen? There's a reason for it. Now, many of them are unconscious competence. They don't know why they do. That's just the way they do it. You can become a conscious competent with what I'm going to show you. Now, do you see, it all starts with our own thinking. See, vibration is a law of the universe. Everything vibrates, nothing rests. Look at the walls around you. They're vibrating. They appear to be still. They're really not still. Look at them through a microscope. You'll see the energy dancing in front of your eyes. Go take a look at a body in a coffin. Now, you'll think I'm really losing it here, but listen and think. Look at the body through a microscope. It is not dead. That body's moving. It's moving so fast it appears to be still. And if it wasn't moving, how would it ever change to dust? Everything moves. We live in an ocean of motion. Make no mistake about it. Every level of vibration is referred to as a frequency, and the beautiful truth is we think on frequencies. Do you know that every great leader that has ever lived, every one of them, they've been in complete unanimous agreement. On one point, they've disagreed on virtually everything else. But this one point they've been in agreement on, that we become what we think about. Solomon put it very well. He was a pretty bright guy. He said, as a person thinketh in their heart. It's not just the thoughts that are running across the screen of your conscious minds. It's the ones you internalize. We truly do become what we think about. See, the thoughts that we're thinking produce the results that we're getting. You see here on page 6, it says money is a servant. It's a servant. Now, there's a myth about money. Says another myth about money, like you accept money, is that it only comes as a result of luck or good fortune. Well, of course, that is really silly. That's not true at all, but that's the concept that a lot of people operate with. Okay? Now, if you move over onto page 7, we're talking about money's got to circulate. It's not only a servant, you got to keep it moving. I have some money here in my pocket. I keep it in a little envelope. And this stuff here is money. The truth is, this represents money. Now, this used to be paper. Now I think it's plastic. You know, use it as a fan. But this is, it's a servant. And you can put this to work. You got to keep it circulating. Now, we tell a story in here about Mr. Chapman. Now, Mr. Chapman was an interesting guy. He lived on the street that I lived on as a little boy. And my brother and I had a paper route, and we sold papers to the people on that street. We had 300 customers, went right from Kingston Road to the Lake Ontario. And almost every house we had as a customer. Mr. Chapman had a big house not too far from our house up on a hill. It was an old house. And one day, Mr. Chapman, we used to feel sorry for him. He was hunchback. He was a little man. He used to push a little cart around, and he collected junk. His wife was a tall, thin lady, and she always wore just skimpy clothes, like a cotton dress with maybe a little coat, running shoes, and she would be off up the street. She went to clean houses or clean offices. We thought they were really poor. Well, one day we opened the paper. We went up the corner to get the papers, and when we got the delivery of the papers, it was headlines that Mr. Chapman had died. It was a headline in the Toronto Star. They found $100,000 in a jar in the house. Here he is collecting junk, and he had $100,000 in a jar in the house. Now, I just looked up that up this morning. That's equal to $1,087,798 in today's dollars. That's what $100,000 in 1947 would have been. In today's dollars, it'd be over $1 million, $1,087,088,000. He had all this money, and he had it in a jar. It was serving no one. It wasn't circulating. And we were shocked that he even had it. So what we've got to understand is that saving it like that is silly. Like here, the money that's in this envelope in my pocket, it's useless as long as it's in an envelope in my pocket. It does no one any good. You may be saying, why are you keeping it there? It won't stay there very long. I'll have it circulating in a very short period of time. Now, if you come down to the bottom of page 9, these are just basics. We're talking about here about a prosperity consciousness exercise. Now that we have touched upon some of the characteristics of money, let us turn briefly to a simple technique which you can begin using immediately to start attracting the amount of money that you desire. Now think of that. You can literally attract to you the amount of money you desire. You've got to ask yourself, where do I stand with money? The one thing you need if you want to move higher is a greater awareness. People are not earning $100,000 a year because they want to earn $100,000 a year. They're earning $100,000 a year because they're not aware of how to earn $100,000 a month. People aren't alone and lonely because they enjoy being alone and lonely. They're alone and lonely because they're not aware of how to build meaningful relationships. People don't struggle all of their commercial career because they enjoy struggling. They're struggling because they're not aware of how to knock those blocks down that are all inside. It's never outside. It's never another person. It's never a condition or a circumstance. It's always lack of awareness. This is such beautiful information. I've been living with it for a long time. I don't even know how you'd live without it. In fact, I don't think you can. You merely exist. And unfortunately, that's the way most people go through life. Do you see, our educational institutions is not giving us this kind of information. They really don't. They really believe the secret is read the book, remember what's in the book, and be able to repeat it. Answer the questions, more right than wrong. You'll pass, you get the degree. Well, we've got people graduating from some of the most prestigious universities in the world every year with multiple degrees that are having difficulty finding work, that are broke. How does that happen? And yet you'll find other people who are functionally illiterate, they can neither read nor write, that are earning millions. How do we account for this? You're going to find that out as you study this. It's got nothing to do with anything outside of ourselves. Education isn't answering what's in the book. Education comes from the Latin educo, meaning to educe, to develop, or to draw from within. Remember I said, everything's already here, omnipresent? That's within us. Madame Montessori was right. Napoleon Hill was right. Carnegie knew the right question. Hill knew how to answer it. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? That's your question. You got to make a decision.
What's the thing that you still want to learn and understand that you feel like, you know what, I haven't fully grasped this concept or idea, and I really want to get to another level?
Well, I'm always wanting to get to another level. Hopefully, I'm at a higher level today than I was yesterday. I'm in here around 5:30 every morning studying.
Wow.
That's how I start my day here. Well, you see, there is no end to the growth. You always want to grow. So you're created in God's image. Now, there's a problem with this. Because we're raised on our physical senses, we grow up, and what we've done is had God created in our image, in our mind. Not that we're creating God's image. We're taught that we created God in our image. So now we're trying to figure out, how can the man be omnipresent? How can that person be everywhere? And because we're locked in on a physical level, we get lost. When we understand that you have infinite potential, there is no top. There's no beginning, no end. See, when it comes to School of Greatness, there's no finish line.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to personal development, there is no finish line. So how can you tell how well you're doing? By the results you're getting. By their fruit. By their fruit, you'll know them. By the results they're getting. If they're not getting the results, they don't know. So if you're going to get a mentor, get somebody that's getting the results.
Yeah.
Or you don't want them.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. For 10 more amazing rules from Bruce Lipton, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
When you're having positive thoughts, you're using your mind. The new biology reveals that the invisible forces that collectively we refer to as mind, that these form a field which shape biology.